So now we are done with a lot of things. We are done with these things now. That is, we are say concept of object-oriented programming. We are done discussing how we can create objects, right? What is static and non-static. Then we started off with interfaces and we discussed about interfaces as well. Now, in today's lecture, we would be dealing about Selenium only. So how it works on page source and how we can analyze page sources. For this, what we would be doing is we would be simply heading over to a new tab. And here in this new tab, what I would be doing is I'll just open any page, for example, rediff.com, right? So rediff.com. Now over here, the thing is, if you go to this particular page, you can see that there are a lot of things. Now, this is not how the page is transferred to us. It is something like this. So if I go to the right, if I right click over the page and go to this view page source, you would see that this is how the page looks to us, right? Now there are a lot of things. So this is HTML. This is pure HTML, right? Now this is the language that browsers understand. So even if a page is written in different languages, ultimately that would be rendered back to HTML and it would look something like this, right? Now over here, how would we be able to analyze things here, right? So let us just see that. Now in this, what I'll do is now instead, see, we have one option that is view page source. We have another option as well that is inspecting the code. So how we can open code inspector? Control Shift I is a shortcut to open developer tools. This is one of the shortcuts. We have another shortcut as well. That is here in the triple dot, click here, then go to more tools, then developer tools, right? You can go like this as well. There is another way as well. If both of the ways are not working, there is a third way which usually works. So either this way, that is options, then more tools, and then developer tools. This works. Or the F12 key on your keyboard. This works. So in case if you're using a laptop, you may need to press Fn key as well, right? Just to enable the F12 key. Now over here, once you're done opening this, it may look something like this. It may look something like this, or it may look something like this. It depends on system to system. In the earlier versions of Chrome, it used to open like this. In the recent versions of Chrome, it is opening like this. So this is just a kind of view that you're getting. Nothing different, right? Now over here, you would see that there are a lot of things, right? For example, let me just go to Rediff Mail, right? On this login page, we have a lot of things. If I analyze this page, view page source, you're getting some text, right? Some HTML text and a lot of things, tags and data, right? Now, if I analyze this page here in Rediff Mail, right? This is the same page, right? But it is a bit formatted now. So you need to expand things to understand this stuff, right? And the benefit is that you can actually highlight the element as well that you would want to use. For example, if I want to analyze this text box, right? How would I be able to do that, right? So there is one way, that is choosing this option, that is select an element in the page to inspect it. Click here, this will turn blue, and now you can highlight the element you would want to have. For example, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and so on, right? For example, this username field. Now over here, if you see something, there is a tag. What is the tag name? For this particular text box, a tag name is input. Now the next thing is we have different tags. So for every element, there is a corresponding tag name depending on the element type. For example, this element has the tag name input. In the same way, this text box is also having a tag name input, right? Now, for this particular checkbox, it is also an input. But if I go there, you can see that this element has the tag name img, that is image, right? If I go to the sign in button, this is also of type input, right? But if I go there in the create an account, you can see that the tag name is A, which is anchor, which is a link, right? So there are different types of elements on the page. We represent them with the help of their tag names, right? So just a second, this has started giving me some kind of trouble. So over here, tag names, right? Now we have got access to tag names, right? But there are other things as well. For example, consider this particular element. Now there is some other information as well. For example, type equals to text, ID equals to login one, max length, and so on. What are these things? These things are the attributes, right? So this is a attribute. Now you ask, what is attribute? Right? So attribute is something that is the properties of that tag, right? For example, the type of this tag is text. The ID of this tag is login1, right? And the name of this tag is login. Now we can see something that may allow us to retrieve this element, right? There are two attributes that we can use, which are also considered as one of the unique attributes, right? So unique attribute, I say, right? What is a unique attribute? So the attribute whose data cannot be copied, right? Or cannot be same. That would be a better option. Now the thing is, if I say that whose data cannot be seen, this means that I can have access to this element with the help of this ID or name, right? Now the question is, how would I be able to do that, right? Is it possible? Let us just see that. So over here, the thing is, just a second. So the thing is that we need to do something to retrieve the elements, right? Now here in Eclipse, let us just say first of all, create the new project. Now I won't be reopening this Eclipse now, right? You guys are already aware of how to open a workspace. Now I'll close this older project. So right click, close project. Then we'll create a new project and I'll be naming this as day 4. Okay. So next, now if I click next, I would be getting option for adding libraries here directly. So go to the libraries tab, then click on add external jars and add all these jar files, right? So these jars are added, click on finish and you're done. Now, the next thing is what you need to do now, right? You already got to know that this is the element and this is how we would say these are the things with which we can access it. But again, what needs to be done over here in Eclipse? So first of all, we need to create a new class and I'll name this as Rediff login, right? So Rediff login. And if you see something, I provided a space in the say class name, it won't take that name. So I need to remove this space mark. So over here, I'll click on finish. Now here in this class, we would be having a main method first. So this has been added. Now what's the first thing that you need to do? We need to open browsers, right? So how would we be able to do that? We have already learned about it. WebDriver driver equals to new Chrome driver or Firefox driver. Let us just go with Chrome driver right now, right? So this is done. Now the next thing is we need to tell driver to open this page. So driver.get and I would specify the URL. What is the URL? So this is the URL that we need to open and I'll copy this and here I'll provide this. Now this is done. The login page has been opened. Now what you need to do is that you need to have access to this username field. Now the question is, how would you be able to analyze this and retrieve this element, right? Would we be able to work with this, right? Now the thing is that to work with this, we need something to be initialized. What is that? So let us just first go to official website of Selenium, selenium.dev. And here, if I go to downloads, then if I go to the API docs of Selenium, that is this particular page, right? Now here, to work with elements, we need to have something with us, that is a web element, right? So there is a interface web element which would be allowing us to deal with the web elements, right? Now over here, you can see that these are the things we can do with the element, right? Click, submit, send keys, clear, get tag name, get attribute. So there are a lot of things that we can do with, right? But the thing is, how would we be retrieving the web element, right? So here, to retrieve a web element, we need to do something, that is we need to use a method provided by the browser itself. So Chrome driver, if you see something, if you scroll down here, you can see that I'm getting an option of a method, that is here, this element. Where is this? Just a moment. Say set file detector, get file, set location, get touch. Where are the other methods? Just a moment, guys. And yeah, so over here, there is a method which allows us to find the element, right? So driver dot find element, right? So how we can specify that? First of all, we need to initialize the object reference of an interface, that is web element. So web element, right? And I would be naming this element as username field, right? Specify the name without spaces equals to. Now I cannot write something like this, that is new web element. This won't work. If I do this, you can see that there are a lot of things that would come up, right? So Control Z. Now what you have to do is that to initialize this particular thing, to get a web element, what you need to do is that specify the command like this, that is driver dot find element. Now this would allow us to find the element, right? By specifying a locator. Now the question is, what is a locator? So locator is this that we discussed right now, and this is the locator, right? Say the locator is name and the name is login, right? Now the question is how we can locate an element here in the code itself. So once we have written this find element, driver.find element, in the argument, what we need to do is that we need to make use of a class which should allow us to locate the elements. So if I go there and if I look for some class named as by, right? So there is a class named as by. Now over here, this class allows me to retrieve the elements, right? And by different ways, say class name, CSS selector, or some other things as well, right? That is tag name, right? So let us just do one thing over here. What I'll do is I'll look for an element with the, so by say name, right? So by name. Now what is the name? I need to specify the name here. So that is, let us just copy it from here so that we can avoid any kind of hassle. And the name is login. Once this is done, okay, just a moment. This is not the element that we would want to retrieve. Yeah, this is the element, login, right? So I'll specify the name here, login, and we are done. Now we have retrieved the element inside the web element. Now what we can do with it? We can do anything with it. For example, I would want to send some data to it. So how would I be able to do that? Or whether it is possible or not, let us see that. So if I type the element name, so user name field dot, you can see that these are the things that I can do with it. And here there are a lot of things, right? And this includes sending some data. So over here, I can send some data. This means that I can type in anything inside this. So if I specify hello, right? Would this work? Now let us just see that. So control F11, this would execute my code in case if you have function keys disabled and you have some special function keys enabled, for example, volume up and volume down. In that case, you need to keep the function key pressed as well. Now you can see that on this page, we are typing something in the username field that is hello, right? How did this work then? So the thing is that what we did here is, let me just do this like this, just a second. So here, now what we have done is we just retrieve the element. Just a second, I made use of wrong tool. Yeah. So in this particular line, we are retrieving in the element. We are finding the element and we are retrieving in that element. So driver, this means that the WebDriver dot find element, it will look for a element with what locator? So by name. Now it will start looking for the elements with the name login, right? So what it would do is it will simply look for the element with the name login. Now there is an element with the name login. So this element has been provided to the driver, right? Now once it is provided, we can do things with it. So that is why over here, when I specified send keys command, this allowed me to access this element and type something here. I can type in anything. For example, my name, right? So if I type in Abhishek, this would do. Let us just run this code once again. It will take a little bit time for the execution to be done, but once it is done, you can see that it would be typing in my name. And you can see that this is typed my name. I did not provide it here manually, right? This is being picked up by the code itself. This is being done by the code itself, right? So let us just close this now. And whenever you're working with this, just make sure that you're closing the windows manually. Otherwise, there would be a lot of browser instances open and this may slow down your system, right? Now, over here, we're done with say sending some data. Can we do this again, right? Can we retrieve this, the next element again, and then we send some other data? If you notice something, we have the name field again. Now this has a different data. That is PASSWD, right? So what I'll do is I'll simply try to retrieve the element again. So web element, say password field and equals to driver dot find element by name. And what is the name? That is PASSWD, right? So PASSWD. Now this is done. Now we have retrieved the element. This means that I can type in something inside it, right? So username field dot send keys, and I would like to send some data to this. So say the same data, Abhishek, right? Now let us just try running this code and let's see whether it works. But now if you notice something, I've made a mistake. That is, instead of accessing password field, I accessed username field. So let us just make this change first. Otherwise, it will cause us trouble later on. Right. So now I'll execute my code, control F11. This would execute my code. And now you can see that this is executing absolutely fine. right? Now over here, you can see that both of the fields have been filled, right? And we are able to work with these. Now, can we click on this sign in button as well, right? Is it possible? Let us just see that. So over here, now what I'll do is that I'll specify about the, say, login button, right? First of all, web element, say login button equals to driver dot find element by, now what locator we would be using, say name, right? So now I'm locating element with its name. So this is done. Now I need to provide the name. What is the name? Let us just see that over here, right? So sign in button, and this has the name proceed, right? I'll copy this and I'll provide it here. So by name proceed, right? Now this is done. So login button dot click, right? So over here, this is done. Now let us just run this code and see what happens, whether it allows us to log in or not, right? And here you can see that it is actually allowing me to deal with the things, and it is giving me a prompt, wrong username and password combination, right? Everything was done in a moment. We didn't even get to know when it typed and it clicked on sign in button, right? Let us just rerun this code once again and analyze it carefully, right? And clearly. Now over here, the browser is opening, the web page is opening, and it typed the information immediately and clicked on the sign in button. I did not do anything from my mouse. You can see that my mouse cursor is here, right? Everything is doing and done itself. Now this is achieved with the help of the element that we retrieved, right? So this is one of the ways you can retrieve an element, right? Now the question is, can we retrieve the element in different other ways as well, right? So while doing this, we can retrieve the element by different ways as well. So first of all, let us just do one thing. That is, let us just declare all the web elements at one place. How we can do that? So simply web element username field equals to null. Then simply just remove this particular part. Username field equals to this. The same way I would be doing for this password field as well, right? So over here, password fields equal to null. This is also done. And the last one, that is login button, right? So I would be copying this particular part and I'll remove this particular part. So now this is done, and I just need to specify it something like this equals to null. Now we are done. Now this means that if I want to make some changes to the code, I can work with it. First of all, let us just try executing the code, whether it is working fine by making some changes or not. It is very important to cross check the code, whether the code would work or not. If you just go away with the code, you may face some kind of issues. Might be I made a mistake while doing this, right? So we cannot be sure that there are no issues. So just try running this application once again, and you can see that this is the same output that we were seeing earlier. Now the thing is, this part is done. We are done locating the elements with the help of their, say, names, right? Now I can do one thing else, that is I can retrieve one element at one particular place, and then I can deal with that element with the element later on as well, right? Like this. Okay. So I'm retrieving the elements here. I'm working with the elements here, right? So let me just uncomment this particular part, and I'll add some spaces so you guys can understand where the things are going around, right? So we can divide this into 3 stages now. First stage, say specifying the initializing the names, then retrieving the data, that is retrieving the elements, and then working with the elements. So we are already done with 2 things, that is send data and click. Now there are other things as well that you can perform in a say regular time. That is, what if you have filled in something and you would want to remove that data here? How you can do that, right? Now there is a simple function for this. That is simple. What I can do is I can clear this data. So username field dot clear, and this would do the work for me. So if I run this code, you can see that the username field would be filled in first, then the data would be removed from that particular field, right? So this is done, and I tried accessing username field, right? So let us just see that. Now if we notice something, I am getting an exception. Why am I getting an exception, right? So there is an exception. This is because what happened was I tried to use an element which was not there when I clicked on sign in button. So let us do one thing. Let us just comment out the sign in button part right now. And what I'll do is after typing in the username, after say 5 seconds. So how to add 5 seconds? Right now I'm using something that we won't be using later on. This is just for the timing purpose. So thread dot sleep. What this would do is this would pause the execution of the code for this particular specified timeline. For example, 10,000 milliseconds. So this is approximately 10 seconds, right? Now over here we have done this. Now it is asking us to add something over here. That is, we would just want to declare that it may throw exception, right? So this is done. Control save, control F11, and you can see that after filling in the username and after waiting for 10 seconds, it would clear out the username. So after exactly 10 seconds, it would be clearing out the username, right? And here you can see that the username has been cleared out. Now let me just decrease the timeline. Instead of 10 seconds, 5 seconds are fine. And I would want to remove my password field as well. So password field dot clear, right? So this is done. Let me just execute this code. And here everything would be done, whatever we ask for it, right? Now you guys might be confused. I showed you an exception, but I did not discuss about it right now, right? So let us just keep it for the coming lectures. We would be discussing about this exception very soon in the coming lectures. Now over here, you can see that both of the fields are empty now, right? This is what we wanted, and this is what we have achieved as well, right? Now the next thing is we were trying to locate the element with the help of their names. Now, there are other ways as well, and an ID is more unique than a name, right? So let us just go to this particular field username, which has the ID login1. This means that I can try to locate the element with its ID as well. Now, how would I be able to do that? Let us just simply head over to Eclipse, and here, instead of using these 3 lines of code, I would be specifying another 3 lines of code which would do the work for us. So first of all is username field equals to driver dot find element. This part would remain same every time. Okay. Now the part which is going to change is this, that is by say what is the element, what is the way we are going to retrieve it, that is tag name, right? Oh, sorry, we are not going to retrieve the element with its tag name. There is something else, that is by the ID, right? So this is done. Now we just need to specify the ID. So this is the ID, that is login1. And here we are done, right? Now over here, I specified one extra closure of bracket. So this is removed now. Now this would work. First thing is done. Second is password field. How would I be able to retrieve password field? So let us just analyze this again. And in the password field, the ID is PASSWD, right? Sorry, PASSWORD, the complete name, right? How would I be able to do that? Say password field equals to driver dot find element by ID, right? And what is the ID? So this is the ID, that is password, right? Over here, we have retrieved this element as well, right? Now the third thing is the say sign in button. So here it has the ID or not. If you notice something, there is no ID with this particular element. So we need to go with this particular line of code only for dealing with this particular button, right? First of all, let me just indent this code properly. So we can use this. Now let us just try running this code now. Okay. So I would be clicking on the sign in button as well, right? And here I'll comment out these two lines of code, right? Control F11 and let us just execute this code now. It will take a little bit time for the execution, but once it is done, you can see the output that what was the data. So you can see that wrong username and password combination. This is what we were getting earlier as well. So this means that we are able to access this element anyhow, right? We are able to access all of these three elements. This means that these elements are working fine, right? Now, the next thing that is about the tag name, right? So first of all, let us just see how Selenium works on the page. Then I would be coming to the tag name. So consider, just a moment, consider this as the web page, right? Now, what Selenium does is it starts reading the content from the page from first line to the last line, right? So over here, it will start from here. It will come to this end. Then it will start the next line. And then this will come to end. Then this will start the third line and so on. And this will continue till the last line. Now, whenever you're trying to locate an element, right? For example, we have this much lines, right? Now, whenever you're trying to locate an element, right? Consider that the element is blue in color. Here the size is this. So this is here, here, and here, right? And here, right? Now the thing is, how would Selenium be handling this kind of situation? Let me just specify the line numbers. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, and say this is n, right? So these are the line numbers with us now. Now the question is which element Selenium would be accessing, right? So the answer to this question is Selenium would be accessing only one element, and that element is this only. It won't be looking for other elements. The reason, the first element that comes its way is the element retrieved, right? This is with Selenium all the time. So if there are three other elements, it will never get to know that there were three other elements, right? Now, this means that we can work with this element. Now, the thing is, this means that I can try locating a element which is having a common name. For example, what if I would want to have access to an anchor tag? That is a link. How we can do that? So over here, what I'll do is I'll specify something over here, that is say web element first anchor tag, right? Equals to driver dot find element by tag name, right? We're specifying the tag name now, and the tag name is A. This is the tag name. Okay. So we are done retrieving the element. Now I would just want to do something, that is I would want to click on this link. So first anchor tag dot click, right? So click, and this is done. Let me just run this code and see which link is getting clicked, right? This all depends on the code now and the page now, that which element is being retrieved, right? And you can see that it is still loading some content right now. And now it has clicked on rediff.com, right? Now the thing is, we can access the elements with these three different ways, right? Now let us just try doing this somewhere else as well. Okay. So over here, let me just mark the things which are done. So we are done with how the Selenium, we are still working with this particular part, analyzing page source. We would be still doing this. So we are done with tag and attribute, right? And which attribute, that is ID and name. Now the next thing is class attribute, whether we would be able to, let's say, locate an element with its class attribute or not. First of all, let us just see that, then we will be moving on to some other application. Okay. So over here in the Rediff mail page, first of all, I would be docking it outside so that my page does not get scrambled. Okay. So here, now these are the elements that we were accessing. So this is the element, right? If you notice something, we are having the type, ID, name, style, but there is no class, right? Now the question is, how would I be able to access other elements? So here, what I'll do is I'll look for an element which we can click on or we can work with, which has the class, right? This is the label. This has no data related to it. Let us just try automating sign in button. It has type, it has name, it has value, it has title, but it does not have a class. But I can do one thing. I can retrieve the element, that is this, which is also highlighting the same element, that is which has the class float L, right? Is this going to work? Let us just see that. Over here, now we have the class float. Let us just try retrieving this element and then automating a click over it. Okay. Now what I'll do, I'll specify something here, that is say login button. So over here, yeah, login button equals to driver dot find element by class name. Okay, what is the class name? That is float L. This is done. Now let us just try doing this thing, whether this would work or not. Okay, so over here, this is executing and it will take a little bit time for the browser to open. Once this is open, we can see that it is not clicking and it is taking us to that particular page, right? So where did I click on the first anchor tag? Let us just comment out this particular part. Okay, I closed the browser instance forcibly, so it would be giving us some problems. First of all, let us just close all the unnecessary browser instances. We don't need them, right? So over here, this is done. Now I can re-execute this code and I'll be executing this code now. We'll get to see that whether the element is getting clicked, right? So over here, it is not getting clicked, right? It is clicking somewhere else. Why? Let us just analyze that page once again. So over here, this was the page, and let us just open developer tools. So this is our developer tools. I'll look for something that is the same thing that we had. Float L is there with a lot of elements, right? The first element is this. That is why it was clicking on this rediff.com, right? Actually, I was not clicking on this link from this part of code. This was clicking from this particular part of code, right? That is login button dot click. Why? Because as I told you earlier, Selenium, whenever Selenium starts looking for the element, when it finds the element, it stops the search. It actually doesn't know how many remaining elements are there, right? So now we are a victim of this thing. Now how we can deal with this, right? So there are different ways that we would be able to deal with it. Right now, let us just try locating different elements with their class name, right? So over here, I'll go to this rediff.com and we'll analyze this money link, whether this would work for us or not. It has some data. It has ahref, title, this, and we have the class name money icon relative. Let us just look for this element. There is any other element with this name or not? Sorry, class or not, right? And here you can see that there is only one element with this. Let us just try retrieving the element with this now. So what I'll do is I'll create a new class, and that is rediff, say home page, right? And we would be dealing on this page now. So what are the things that we are going to copy from here? First of all, let me just comment out this thing that we are going to use later on, right? And from Rediff login, I would be initializing the browser. So this part is copied, and the browser name, right? Okay. First of all, we need to have main method. Now this thing, Control Shift F, it would format everything accordingly. Now the page is not this that we would want to open. This is a simple page, that is www.rediff.com/, right? Now this is done. Now the next thing is we need to locate that element. So driver, but first web element, say the link name, right? Say rediff money link, right? Equals to driver dot find element by class name. What is the class name? So the class name is this that we've copied. Okay. So this is done. Now let us just see that whether this works or not, right? I am pretty sure that it won't be working, but still let us just see that. So rediff money link dot click. Okay. Now I'll run this code and we'll see whether it is locating element with the class name or not, right? And here the browser is opening, the page is opening, and then it would be trying to click on that link once the page load is complete. And you can see that the code is still executing, so we need to wait for some time, right? And it is still loading, so we cannot do anything with it. And here, just a moment, guys. And it is still taking a lot of time. Rediff.com has got very slow these days. Let us just do one thing. Let us just stop loading this page so that we can move forward. Okay. And it immediately threw an exception. So what is the exception? No such element exception. It was not able to locate the element with this particular class name. Now, what is the problem with this class name? If you notice something, it has a space in between. Now, this means that if I go there, if I inspect it again, and here, if I see something, yes, there is a space in between. So whenever there is a space in between, the class name, you won't be able to work with it. So let us just do one thing. Let us just try retrieving the element with the class, and I'll just specify only first part. Control F, Control V. Now there is only one element with the money icon relative, but if I specify money icon only, then also there is one element, right? Now what you can do is you can try with money icon only, ignore the relative part, right? So money icon. Now let us just try running this code once again. We will just get to know that whether we would be able to access this element or not. If we are able to access this element, well and good. If we are not able to access this element, then we need to devise some other way for accessing such kind of elements, right? So over here, it will take a little bit time. And here it is still loading. The problem with this page is that we get a lot of ads. Now, if you notice something, it has clicked on the money link, right? Let me just rerun this code. Here, Control F11, you would notice that once the page load is complete, it will immediately click on the money link. Okay, so this page load is complete and it has clicked on money link, right? So this means that this is working fine. So what I did, let me just show you once again. Here, if I analyze this page, right, this was the link that we were trying to retrieve. So whenever there is a class name which is separated by a space, this means that there is actually not one class name. There are two different class names. That is money icon and relative. So try looking for the element with one of the names so that you would be able to access these. But now there is a problem with the class name. This does not go with it all the time. For example, here we had the class name float L. I'll analyze this page. So inspect and control F, float L. If you notice something, there are 7 different elements with the same class name, right? The first one is this div class float L. Second one, div class AD area float L. Then div class float L bold, div class float L, div class float L, div class float L, and the last one div class float L. So there are a lot of things. See this one, and say this one, right? So there are a lot of things which have the same class name. So what we can do is simply specifying one of the names whenever needed, right? Now, the next thing, what if we have an element, we have actually multiple elements with the same attribute, that is ID. What if we have more than one element with the same attribute ID? How would we be able to access one of the links, right? If we try to access it, the only first one would be accessed. But the question is, how would we be able to access the second one, right? So I just want you to try this yourself first. Then we would be discussing about this thing in the next lecture, right? How would we be able to do that? So the practice for you is just try looking up for elements on any of the pages which has the same IDs. There should be at least one or two elements, right? Now, using same ID is not suggested, but sometimes developers use same IDs for some reason. So in that case, how would we be able to handle such kind of situations? We would be learning about that in the next lecture. So this was for the today's lecture. Let us just go back to syllabus and see what we have done and what we are left with. So we are done with this part, how Selenium works on page source. We are done with analyzing page source. We have analyzed the page source in Chrome. I have not analyzed in Mozilla and IE. The shortcuts are same. So if I open Internet Explorer, right, everything would work the same way. For example, I'll open rediff.com, right? I'll hit F12 key, right? You can see that the debugger has opened over here. We call it the debugger in Internet Explorer, right? And you can also call it developer tools. So this has opened and you can work with these here. These work the same way, right? The elements won't change. So if you want to analyze this Rediff mail link, you can analyze it. So if we go to this page, you can see that you can actually analyze this particular element here as well. This will show us the same data, right? Name equals to login, ID equals to login one. This may go here and there. Say name login should be in the end in any other browser. ID login one should be in the first position in some other browser. But these things won't change. The data won't change, right? Now, I'll show you with the, say, Mozilla Firefox as well. So Mozilla Firefox. And here, the same key combination, F12 key, would work here as well. I don't want to set this perform say as my default browser. So say rediff.com. And here, F12 key. The same thing would open developer tools here as well. It may be docked to the bottom, it may be docked to the right, or it may be open in a separate window. But yes, it will open. No matter where it is opening, but yes, it would open. So the analysis of page is same everywhere, as I told you earlier as well. You can analyze the page by clicking on this button and then go back to the page and try locating the elements. So this element, this would be highlighted over here now, right? So in the same way, if I go there and if I try to locate this particular username field, right click over it, inspect element, and this is done, right? So over here, ID equals to login one, type equals to text, then name equals to login. So if we notice something here, ID equals to login one in the third part. But here in this particular browser, it is in the first part. So no matter what, where the attribute has been specified, if it has been specified with the element, it will work the same way if it is specified somewhere else within the same element. So the tag is starting here, the tag is ending here. It can be specified anywhere and it would work, right? So this is how we can analyze pages. This is how we can retrieve elements, and this is how we interact with the elements. Try doing the same thing over here yourself, and then do one thing. Try logging into your Facebook accounts as well, right? So open facebook.com, analyze those username fields here, right? So say facebook.com, analyze these username fields, right? Both of these fields, and then try clicking on the login button. Okay. So this is the exercise for you. This was for the today's lecture. Thank you. If you have any queries, you can feel free to ask.